Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. So today we were actually reading from Surah Al-Jathiya, and while we were reading, I actually got hyped in the ayat and thought it would be a good idea to just do a fast tafsir. It's not going to go really thorough, so just a fast tafsir with what we're reading. حاميم تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم. Now it's really important to mention that all those letters that come in that connection where they don't actually have an official meaning that we know in Lugha Arabiya. So they're more of the letters that are trying to attract, to bring attention, kind of like a ringing bell for the people to listen. And at the same time, there are some scholars that said that the letters that were coming in those forms, um and of course they're actually combined in a whole part of a poem. صله سحيرا من قطعك. So we're looking at the saw, the lam, the ha, the sin, the ha, the ya, the ra, سحيرا من قطعك, the meme, the noon, the qaf, the ta, the ain, and the kaf. So those are the 14 letters that actually come in that broken, and not what I mean by broken, meaning the letters that are not necessarily connected, and what we mean by connected to form a word. And the letters that always come in that format, you will always see it's either going to talk about a kitab, meaning the book, or it's going to be talking about an ayat. It's going to be talking about ayat. It's going to be talking about verses. It's going to be talking about the Quran itself, or even the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent. So Hamim Tanzilul Kitabi min Allah al-Aziz al-Hakim, which is actually telling us that these letters that you're seeing in front of you, whether it's the Hamim or it's the Alif Lam Mim or it's the Alif Lam Ra, etc., are actually the very same exact letters that form the revelation that Allah Almighty had sent. The only surah that doesn't actually come where you're seeing those letters and then it's talking about al-kitab or al-Quran, or it's talking about that revelation, is actually in Surah Al-Rum, in where it's alif lam mim ghulibat al-rum. It takes you directly to the subject where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there then outlining the miracles of knowing his ability to know the future and actually foretell us about what's going to happen to Rum. Regardless, so Tanzilul Kitabi min Allah al Aziz al Hakim, in where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us that this very same exact letters are actually the very same letters that form the revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent in the Quran, of course. So al-kitab here is referring to the Quran, in where it's revealed from the Lord Almighty. The word Al-Aziz is the one that is not in need for others, but others are in need of him. So Allah Almighty is starting with that, in where he's Al-Aziz and he's Al-Hakim. He's the one that is self-sufficient and all wise. Whenever you want to start with a surah, you want to look at the names of the Lord Almighty mentioned in the Quran. They're not just mentioned, just to give a name out there, but they actually have a specific context. They have a specific context for those ayat that were mentioned. So inna fi samawati wal ard. I want you to continue with me here. Inna fi samawati wal ardi la ayatin lil mu'minin. So here's this. You're looking at, it was talking about tanzil, meaning that it was a revelation. It was a revelation that was sent down, and then it talks to us about samawati wal ard. And then what is it trying to say? So here it's trying to tell us that there are two different types of revelations to help us understand our purpose in life. The first revelation is the first revelation or the first sign or understanding, or to help us understand our existence in life, really starts from al-wahi itself, which is from the angel, the message that was sent from the to the angels, to the prophets and the messengers, um, peace be upon them. So you've got one type of message that was revealed in a written format, which is al kitab, whether that was al Quran, whether that was the Gospels, or whether that was the Torah, or even we're talking about Suhuf Ibrahim wa Musa, and the different revelations that were sent unto Prophet Ibrahim or Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Now, the other type of revelation, but it's a different kind of a revelation. The other type of revelation is more of an open book format. So you've got a written book, which is right there, Al Quran, etc. And you also have an open book formation in the format of a samawat wal ard, where you're seeing the heavens, you're seeing the earth, and all those are actually la ayatin lil mu'minin. They're basically signs for the believers. So why signs for the believer, since they're already believers? Why would it be a sign for the believer? Here's the thing, is that you may actually recognize that the earth and the sun were created in a complex way, created in a certain pattern, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get to the knowledge to why and who created it. The only way to know and understand the pattern, so you're able to look at this open book, which is the skies and the heavens and the earth and the different things that you see in the universe, you're able to recognize that they cannot necessarily be created on their own. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says لَآيَاتٍ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, even though they're, why would they necessarily need such evidence? So the word dil mu'minin is really because the our understanding as human beings, we can only figure out the way that things are functioning, or even the magnificence in that creation. And the only way to know it, and to know the more details about, well, who created it and what it was created for, was really because you would have to go back to al-wahi, which is the revelation that the Lord Almighty had sent unto the prophets and the messengers. So in other words, the first type of epistemological resource for us to understand our life and understand our existence and to understand our purpose in life would only come from the revelation that we would get through the prophets and the messengers. So that's why it says لَآيَاتٍ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَفِي خَلْقِكُمْ. Then it goes into giving us more and more. Again, it's not that the miracles are not there to recognize the magnificence of the Lord Almighty. It's that people's hearts may be blinded to actually have that insight to see beyond the surface. وَفِي خَلْقِكُمْ. And not only in what is probably farther than you, maybe the skies are too far, you might say, or maybe you can't get to their details and understand that because they're too high, or the earth may be too vast for you to recognize those different areas. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, well, there's something even within you. وَفِي خَلْقِكُمْ. And even in your very own creation. Now the word خَلْقِكُمْ is actually telling us that, in the way that you were created, of course, out of nothing. وَمَا يَبُثُّ مِن دَابَّةٍ. So not only your creation, but every single creature that walks on earth. And the word dabba is basically any creature that walks on earth, that stamps, or that basically moves on earth. آيَاتٌ لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ. There are signs for those that are لآيَةٌ لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ, for those that have reached the level of yuqinun. I want you to look at this, because in the first one, لآيَةٍ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. In the second one, لآيَةٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ. Why is this a different level? So in the first one, the first level, this is really related to, when the person is recognizing the first part of it. The first part of it is recognizing that this magnificent creation around us is really coming from the Lord Almighty, which was laid out in Revelation. And then the continuing part of it, in where you're recognizing even the details. Again, this is the details of the creation, that is your own creation, of the different things that surround you, in where you're taking it as a yaqeen, as you're taking it as a level that is higher than just submitting to the Lord Almighty, but you're taking it as yaqeen to mean absolute faith, a very strong faith that will not get you hesitant in any way. واختلاف الليل والنهار. Well, not only is the creation itself, so this is talking about the creation and the actual existence, but then it continues to give more and more signs about not only the creation of something, but the functionality. In other words, the way it functions is also in the hands of the Lord Almighty, to mean that if the one that created has the power to create something, the Lord Almighty not only has the power to create, but also to control the way they function. The way they function, whether that is, of course, when we're talking about اختلاف الليل والنهار, this is related to the first segment of it, which is السماوات والأرض وما أنزل الله من السماء من رزق فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها. Now, here's the first segment of it is, of course, the day, the night, and how the orbit, and how they orbit themselves in order to create the existence of day and night. And not only the existence of day and night, but of course this is taking us into recognizing that the pattern, in where even what comes down from the skies is not whatsoever separate from what grows on earth. In other words, what brings life on earth is really the same exact one that actually makes that what is on the top, or from high, the skies, the clouds, etc., relating to what is on earth. In other words, this is to totally refute that there's a deity for the heavens, and a deity for earth, and a deity for the and a solar deity, or a love deity, or whatever it is. That's in order to say that the whole system works based on the Lord Almighty, and how it is only one Lord Almighty that created those different things that surround us, and not only created them, but created the way they function, how they function, and how they all relate to one another. And without one piece of it, then everything would actually end life. So فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها, and brought earth back to life after its death. What is brought earth back to life? So when we say أحيا به الأرض بعد موتها, it's like a moment when the earth is dead. What does it mean that the earth is dead? The earth is dead would mean that it doesn't have it's not fertile. It's basically, kind of like a very sandy, very hard, etc. I mean, there aren't any crops. So that would mean that it's dead. Then when the crops are there, crops and of course plants, etc., are basically living things. They could die, they could live, etc. And all these different things are really to show us that the pattern, the one to create the pattern, to create things from existence, is the very same one to create the pattern to come to bring something to death. So this is the cycle. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically telling us, well, this is the cycle that He controls the existence of the actual things, and even controls the cycle to bring things to life. And وَتَصْرِيفِ الرِّيَاحِ آيَاتٌ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. So tasrif al-riyah is how the Lord Almighty lets the wind flow, and the word is flow. So when we look at the word tasrif, it means flow. How the wind flows. آيات لقوم يعقلون. And those are signs for those that have يعقلون. When we say يعقلون, meaning the people that are capable of understanding, the people that use comprehension, the people that ponder in the different things. And I want you to look at that one so you could see لآيات لقوم يعقلون, but then it said here يوقنون and مؤمنين. So why did it actually say two different things? So when we're looking at اختلاف الليل والنهار, it's talking about the different, the rotation of the orbit, how the sun orbits and etc. And then it's talking about that brings in the day and the night, and talks about how how Earth from being unfertile, or from not being fertile to being fertile, and how it's affected by the wind, and how the wind, all these different things bring in life. And of course it's talking about the function side of it. It brought in yaqilun because it's not necessarily clear for people to understand that the function and how we see the world functioning is not necessarily clear to everyone, but only for those that may do or have some scientific research, or maybe test different things. In other words, they had some kind of comprehension, some kind of intellect to understand the functionality of things, and to see further than the surface, that there's a sun, there's an earth, there's wind, but to actually connect the dots to see that those different items that surround them are actually related to the creation itself, and that those items were really to reflect the magnificence of the Lord Almighty, who created all the things that surround us. تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق. So those are the signs. When you look at the word, I want to take you back right there. When you look at تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق, I'm going to let the screen be a little bit smaller right there. تلك آيات الله, those are the tilka, the word tilka, those are the signs. And you look at the word ayatu, the word ayah can actually mean sign and can also mean a verse. Tilka ayatullah natluha alayka bilhaq, in where those are the signs. So is it here talking about a verse, or is it here talking about a different kind of an ayah, a different kind of a sign? Remember, it can be a verse, it can be a sign, and two different items, or are they? So remember here when we actually talked about the written book and the open book, when we're talking about the world, we're talking about the things that the magnificence of the world, the creation of the world that surrounds us. So natluha alayka bilhaq, this is actually more relating to the first segment, because it said natluha. Tilka ayatullahi natluha. This is relating to the first segment, where it's talking about that those are the verses that the Lord Almighty had revealed or had read with truth on us, or onto the Prophet, peace be upon him. فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Now the second segment of it, in where it's talking about فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ. So what words, after such words and the signs of the Lord Almighty, do they believe in? Now this is related to the open book. And think of the open book, meaning the world, the space, the function, and how they move, etc., in order for us to understand. So now you could see that the Lord Almighty is telling us, well, you've got the first side of it, which is al-wahi, which is the revelation. That's one side of understanding and recognizing the Lord Almighty. But that in itself is always taking you to the open book revelation, to the open book miracles, which is the creation of the world. So في بأي حديث, hadith is more discourse, more talk, more explanation. So then it's telling you, well, there's the one side of it, which is the side of the revelation that was sent, and then there's the other type of revelation, which is what we had explained to you, what the Lord Almighty had explained to us in understanding the existence in the world that surrounds us. So فبأي حديث بعد الله وآياته يؤمنون. So بعد Allah, after the words of the Lord Almighty, and then وآياته, and the different signs. So the different signs, whether that would include the two ayat, meaning the written book, and the different revelations that we see around us. So here, بعد الله وآياته, what discourse would they believe in after, of course, at the books or the signs or revelations, would they believe in after or beyond the Lord Almighty's revelation, and also what the Lord Almighty had exposed to you? Again, the word is exposed. So after exposing those different signs to us, will they then have what will they then have the right to claim as the complete and absolute truth? وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ أَفَّاكٍ أَثِيمٍ. The word wail is a type of, it's a type of warning. It's a form of warning in where it is saying, well, for لِكُلِّ أَفَّاكٍ أَثِيمٍ, for every single one. Affak, the word affak means a person that creates blasphemy, that invents a blasphemy, and athim is a person that is constantly committing sin. So why these two parts of it? Now remember, affak is relating to aqidah, meaning that they would reject what the Lord Almighty had sent with truth. Remember, just like amanu wa amilu salihat, there's the faith and there's the good action. So this is the faith. In regards to faith, they're rejecting the signs that the Lord Almighty had explicitly clarified to man, yet they rejected them in faith. But then the result of that is really that they were living a life of ithm, a life of sin, a life where they're distant away from the principles of the Lord Almighty. يسمع آيات الله تتلى عليه. They would listen to the signs or the verses of the Lord Almighty read and recited to them. ثم يصر مستكبرا كأن لم يسمعها. ثم, and the word ثم is basically telling us that there's a time lapse. ثم يصر مستكبرا. Then the word يصر is actually telling us that there is a determination to do and to hold a certain behavior after listening to the words of the Lord Almighty. يصر مستكبرا. The determination and the behavior and the stance that they had decided to take, in where they were taking arrogance as their stance towards the evidences that the Lord Almighty had sent. كأن لم يسمعها. كأن لم يسمعها, as if they can't hear it. Now remember, what evidences that they actually, كأن لم يسمعها is actually telling us that it's talking about what here, what part of the revelation? Well, كأن لم يسمعها, as if they can't hear it, that would actually refer to the first segment, which is الوحي. فبشره بعذاب أليم. Then remind them or tell them. Though the word فبشره, the word tabshir right here is more of bringing glad tidings, but this is more of being sarcastic in this context, in where it's actually saying, bring them glad tidings, but of course it's not glad whatsoever. بعذاب أليم, with complete. The word عذاب is basically painful. بعذاب, it's a torture that is painful. But I want you to look at the other segment of you here. وَإِذَا عَلِمَ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا شَيْئًا, and when they would know about any of the signs of the Lord Almighty, اتَّخَذَهَا هُزُوًا. Now this is talking about the second segment or even the first segment. إِذَا عَلِمَ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا, when they know from the verses of the Lord Almighty, they would take it as a form of sarcasm. They would just be in mockery, in total mockery on the verses and the different revelation that the Lord Almighty had sent. أُولَئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. Now the word muhin, for those people, the Lord Almighty had prepared azab, it's a torture, it's a punishment that is humiliating. So why humiliating? And before that it said alim. Why humiliating this time? So the reason for that is because when it here talked about a theme, because they are because they have their own vision of this life wrong. That's why their reaction and their action relating to their life has totally gone wrong, in where they're living in a life full of sin. They're totally distant because their vision was going wrong. Their vision was off. Therefore, their understanding of life has totally gone wrong as well. So when you look at the word athim, the result to describe it is it became alim. It became athim and alim. Athim is because of the sin, and alim is painful. But here, muhin is more humiliating. Why humiliating? Because the person that would stand in a stance of mockery, the person that is going to hold some mockery position, is really the person that already condescends others and is taking any message or any form of advice, is taking it more of belittling the person, belittling the verses, belittling the signs, etc. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of their arrogance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give them an opposite punishment, or basically the punishment from that particular behavior that they were practicing, and actually making it as humiliating, because they were condescending the mu'mineen, they were condescending the message, they were mocking the message. And usually a person goes into mockery when they are actually acting in complete arrogance and that self-centered, that ego self-centricity part. min waraihim jahannam, and nasallallahu al-afwa wal-afiyah. min waraihim jahannam, hellfire is min waraihim. Now, the word min waraihim doesn't necessarily mean, behind them per se, but min waraihim could also mean that it's surrounding them. So when we say wara, waraihim, it can mean behind them, can mean in front of them, and it can mean it is surrounding them. So totally they're in this circumference, and where it is totally surrounding them, totally, let's say, absorbing them, in where hellfire is there to totally surround them from all angles. وَلَا يُغْنِي عَنْهُمْ مَا كَسَبُوا شَيْئًا. The word وَلَا يُغْنِي عَنْهُمْ. Now, when we say somebody is rich, we say that person is ghani. Ghani to mean that they are self-sufficient, that they are capable of using their own money, their own property, their own wealth, etc., to help them not need anybody else's assistance. So when we say وَلَا يُغْنِي عَنْهُمْ مَا كَسَبُوا شَيْئًا, here to mean that all that they had acquired, all the different, probably a degree, maybe a position, maybe a leadership in this dunya or whatever it is, all that they had acquired is right now not going to be giving them any kind of support. It's not going to be giving them any type of support, and not even anything that they had taken outside of the Lord Almighty before to grant them some kind of a support, some kind of elevation. Right now, none of that is going to be giving them the support. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And remember, you want to look at every single description, how it describes it, and they would have a punishment that is azim. The word azim means magnificent. Why was it talking about something that is magnificent? Well, because a person that had thought that what they had acquired and what they were, let's say, supporting at one point in this dunya. So those two items, they thought that was going to make them magnificent, that was going to elevate them somehow. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying right here that all those different things that they one time took for granted is right now becoming that place to let them lose all what positions they one time were so proud of. Now they are being replaced of something else that is magnificent, which is a great and magnificent torture, or punishment. هذا هدى. What is it? هذا هدى. This, the word هذا is this. هذا هدى والذين كفروا بآيات ربهم لهم عذاب من رجز أليم. هذا هدى is actually referring to two sides. Remember, when you look at, I'm going to make this page even smaller a little bit. When it's talking about هذا, it's actually referring to two items. It's referring to the wahi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed, and this would include the general message. All right, the open book and the closed book. It didn't say هذاني, it's not referring to two things, but it's actually talking about the whole guidance, the whole idea of that was revealed onto the prophets on messengers. This is huda, because it's talking about هذا huda. So this is not talking about هذاني, meaning what you will find in terms of the open book and what you will find in terms of the revelation are not separate, but they're actually leading to one exact purpose, one exact message, is that there's only one Lord Almighty behind this world, and this world was created in truth for people to be tested. We're going to get to that. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ لَهُم مِّنْ عَذَابٌ مِّن رِجْزٍ أَلِيمٍ. In where those that actually denied, in the end, when they would deny والذين كفروا, you could see right here, والذين كفروا, those that had rejected and denied the Lord Almighty's ayat, the word ayat, whether it is the revealed, meaning the messages that were revealed onto the prophets, or whether they denied that there's any sign, or that this magnificent creation that they're seeing around them is a reflection of the magnificence of the Lord Almighty. So that's why they لهم عذاب من رجز أليم, they would have a punishment من رجز أليم. So the word rijz is meaning like the let's say the most the highest and the most painful punishment. الله الذي سخر لكم البحر. Now here's one thing, is that the ayah completely goes into a response, and at the same time it's talking to your mind. So the person, when they look at those different things, because it's talking about ma kasabu, and it's talking about what they were doing and what they regarded as their authority, whether it's that a certain government, a certain philosophy, a group of people, a certain club, or a certain lifestyle, that was at one point taken as the authority and the place to be on top of the Lord Almighty. And I would say the authority to mean what guides them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responding to the mind when they're reading and they're saying, well, I've done this. I'm the one that actually did this. I should get the credit for it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responding to the mind that's saying, well, I should get the credit for it. Why should I necessarily consider worshiping a Lord when I was the one that did this? I should get the credit for it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to that and says, well, Allahu alladhi sakhar lakumul bahr. It's the Lord Almighty that had subjugated the seas for you in order to have the different fulk. The word fulk means whether it's the yachts or whether it's ships or whatever different kinds of ships, in where they're basically going into the sea, and that the Lord Almighty is the one that surrounded man with the different bounties and the different things to help man find the keys to surviving in this world. In other words, the credit really goes to the Lord Almighty. وَلِتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. This is also reminding people that they were just giving you an example. The example is the sea, in where the Lord Almighty, to him goes all the credit for the different things that surround you. Min fadlihi, وَلِتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. In every corner of the world, every corner of earth, the Lord Almighty the Lord Almighty had created the different things, the different bounties in this world to help man live their life. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you would be able, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you would be thankful to the Lord Almighty. When we say thankful, means two things. One, it means to be thankful in in your recognition that this is a bounty from the Lord Almighty. The other type of being thankful is the recognition in behavior, in where the person is recognizing that if the Lord Almighty would not have blessed them with this, they would not have been able to function in this life. So وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ is basically taking us in where shukr is actually a form of ibadah. Being thankful or recognition, which starts with recognition, is actually a form of worship. وَسَخَرَ لَكُم مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مِّنْ. Again, it's taking us to the same idea, and that the Lord Almighty, all the different things that you see around you were really, the credit goes back to the Lord Almighty. He had given us the ability to use those different things that we find in the world around us, whether that was in the heavens or whether on earth. All of it is from no one but the Lord Almighty. And those, there are signs for people to think. And when you look at the word to think, why is it speaking about to think? Because at many times people may have the different items that surrounds them, but it takes intellect, it takes deep ponderance in order to figure out how things function and how to make use of the items that may surround us. And that's why the intellect, لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. In other words, there are many deep things inside, not because you happen to use your intelligence to, let's say, design a phone. You can't necessarily say that you designed a phone and that the credit goes back to you. It was really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that created the physics that surrounds you, that gave you the ability to understand the laws of, probably, I don't know, electrical things that we have in the world, electrical engineer, whatever it is. But it's really because the Lord Almighty had actually created these laws in the world, is what led you, let's say it that way, is what led you to understanding how to use those different blessings that the Lord Almighty had given us. قُلِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا يَغْفِرُ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ أَيَّامَ اللَّهِ. Yet, on the other hand, the rejection might still be there. There are many out there, they're going to continue to reject every single message that was sent. So the Lord Almighty says, tell the believers, let them forgive. But here, forgive means dismiss, that they would dismiss those that do not want, or those that don't have their hope for the days of Allah Almighty. When you look at the word days of Allah Almighty, meaning akhirah, meaning Jannah, meaning the times that the Lord Almighty will shed more of His mercy on the mu'mineen. لِيَجْزِيَ قَوْمًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. And this is telling us that the whole world was created for one main reason. Just like تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة, the one that created life and death. Why? الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم, in order to test you. So here, with the same idea, that the whole world was really created liyajziya, in order to reward قوما بما كانوا يكسبون, for what they had done, for the things that they had already given, or had already done in their life before even the hereafter. As for the first category, من عمل صالحا فلنفسه, and this is in order to understand what the word al-Aziz, remember the first ayah was using the name Al-Aziz Al-Hakim. So this is in order to understand, again, the same exact center that the same ayat, the same surah actually started out with. Then it continues, whoever does good, whoever does piety, practices piety, then that would be really for not the Lord Almighty. Well, yes, you are sincere to the Lord Almighty, but the Lord Almighty is self-sufficient. In other words, the credit and the reward for it really goes back to you. The Lord Almighty is not going to get anything, just like in the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ actually says, if even if لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم, if the ones to the earlier generations, the earlier nations, and the ending, the last nations, and the ins and all the people and all mankind and all the jinn had combined together and were in just one magnificent plateau or one magnificent land, they would all be on a heart that is as pious as the most pious of all of us, that would not increase anything in the magnificence of the Lord Almighty. And same thing, if all of these people and all of these jinns and etc. Combined, in other words, in in groups in order to go against the Lord Almighty, and we're at the heart of the worst of the people, that would not decrease from the Lord Almighty's power. وَمَنْ أَسَاءَ فَعَلَيْهَا. So again, so this is for the people that were doing good. وَمَنْ أَسَاءَ فَعَلَيْهَا. And whoever would do evil, then the Lord Almighty would actually punish for that particular action. ثم إلى ربكم ترجعون. Then to your Lord Almighty. And this is actually hinting a number of things here. It's hinting ثم إلى ربكم ترجعون. So does that mean that even the things that you do in this dunya, all right, so you do in this life, will we also be getting and, let's say, harvesting some of what we did in this life? The answer is yes. So for those that do good, you will also be living in a form of, let's say, satisfaction, a form of good that is actually coming to you in this dunya. And those that are doing the wrong things will also be harvesting some of the consequences and from the decisions that they had also taken in this life. Just like somebody, for example, uses drug abuse. Okay, they do drugs, so they might sense some kind of a sensation, some kind of pleasure while they're doing it. But then they'll be the ones to harvest other of the pains, probably losing the marriage, probably losing the kids, or probably losing a job, probably losing their health, etc. So what happens is really it actually comes with it. So the sin actually comes with it. The good deed actually brings something good with it. You may not recognize it. Then in the end, in the akhirah, in the hereafter, ila rabbikum turja'un. Then your return is to the Lord Almighty. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. Now it takes us to looking at the pattern where the Lord Almighty had brought and had given Bani Israel. And this is really important, that look at this, in where it takes us to Bani Israel, to see a certain pattern, that not because you got the revelation or you were doing, or the details of the legislature, or probably even a rank in a certain progeny where you've got, maybe your dad was a scholar, your mom was a scholar, etc. And وَرَزَقْنَاهُم مِّنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ, or you might even get a lot of different bounties, the good bounties, all right? And you could be at one point given so many different privileges. And here, Bani Israel were given many privileges that other nations were not given. The privilege of getting a revelation, the privilege of leadership, the privilege of rulings, the privilege of laws, and the privilege of even high rank amongst people to receive guidance. And not only that, وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ بَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْرِ. And they had even details, clear details, very intricate details on many different matters. Yet, even though it was all clear, فَمَا اخْتَلَفُوا إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ. And this is really important. You can have knowledge, you can have degrees, you can have maybe pious parents that rose you in a good way, and you can even have lots of knowledge in Islam. But then you may find, and it can happen, that the person's heart gets distant away from Allah Almighty. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings Bani Israel as an example, in where فَمَخْتَلَفُوا, and the only reason why they went into dispute about really what the truth is, it's really when they من بعد إلا من بعد ما جاءهم العلم بغيا بينهم. So when they went into what they thought was actually an interpretation of truth, it was really going into these circles in where they're going into delusions to reinterpret the words of the Lord Almighty, and the Lord Almighty will be the one to rule between them on Judgment Day with what the word يختلفون is not necessarily what they were in dispute about, but what they actually went and distanced themselves from the words of the Lord Almighty, distanced themselves away from the Lord Almighty, and which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاكَ. In other words, later after Bani Israel, the Prophet ﷺ was anointed with Allah, فَاتَّبِعْهَا, then follow the Lord Almighty had anointed you and chosen you with or for, وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ أَهْوَاءَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. And now this ayah is now taking us into a slightly different chapter here. فاتبعها ولا تتبع أهواء الذين لا يعلمون. Then follow that path, follow that law, follow the principles that the Lord Almighty had revealed onto you, that is, O Muhammad, and do not follow the inclinations of those that don't know. So why did it actually go into a different chapter here, and how did it take us into that corner? So remember, when you actually look at the different epistemologies, so they're in the first part of Surah Al-Jathiya, it was actually discussing al-wahi. It was discussing your understanding of truth, your vision of truth, where the beginning of it, that is aqidah. Then in the second segment of it, it's actually taking us into the second part, in al-amal al-salih, and what defines righteous actions, what defines truth, what defines principle, what defines our actions as right and wrong. So then it took us to the second segment of it, in where oftentimes people may go away from understanding the vision, but then they would focus on the action and focus on the philosophy, and let's call it the philosophy of morals and ethics and etc. And then they would say, well, here's our philosophy and here's how we can judge something right and wrong. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ أَهْوَاءَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Don't follow the inclinations and the whims of those that don't know. And remember, always related to three main epistemologies that Surah An-Najm is always relating us to and connecting us with, which is يتبعون إلا الظن وما تهوى الأنفس ولقد جاءهم من ربهم الهدى. They follow their dhann, speculation, which many would call studies. يتبعون إلا الظن وما تهوى الأنفس, and what their inclinations and whims are dictating to them. Basically, they would follow their whims and what their whims make them feel. And that's exactly like animals. The animals, they get a certain feeling where it's a hormone, and they will not act based on principle, but they will act based on what their feelings are dictating and what their feelings are pushing them towards. And then وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُم مِّن رَّبِّهِمُ الْهُدَى. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and they had received a revelation of guidance from their Lord Almighty, with the same exact pattern. So you could see here, it's taking us from speaking about al-wahi, from speaking about al-Quran, from speaking about the beginning of the vision, to actually speaking about our actions. And then إِنَّهُمْ لَن يُغْنُوا عَنْكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا. It's really important, forgot to mention here, وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ أَهْوَاءَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, is that most people, the reason why they would reject the Sharia, why they would reject the principles of the Lord Almighty, is really because their whims are taking them elsewhere. They're so focused on their whims, and they would think that the whims that is that or the feelings or the pleasures that they are getting is actually the base that would determine whether something is right or wrong. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ أَهْوَاءَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Well, they don't know it. The ahwa that they're following is not based on knowledge, but is actually based on whims, just like animals. It's just based on certain emotions, based on different feelings, hormone changes, whatever it is. And then that's not based on knowledge of the purpose or knowledge to whether this is something good or bad. إنهم لا يغنوا عنك من الله شيئا وإن الظالمين بعضهم أولياء بعض والله ولي المتقين. As many might actually, when you have the majority that surrounds you, it's very common that when you would have peer pressure, when you have the society doing a certain practice, it's very common that we might actually weaken to the common practice and actually follow our own whim to join the club, or just like an American proverb that says, if you can't beat them, join them. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responding to the, if you can't beat them, join them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they cannot, la yughnu anka min Allahi shay'a. They will not support you away from away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, they will not support you if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills to do anything to you. وَإِنَّ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. And this one is really scary. And those that are oppressors, the oppressors, they support one another. In other words, they will support one another against truth. So don't talk of communism and talk about capitalism and talk about atheism and Zionism as if they were separate entities. They will support one another in order to try and attempt to bring an end to truth and those that act in truth. So don't speak about them as if they were separate entities, because in the zalimina ba'duhum awliya'u ba'd, they will support, the oppressors will support one another. And the Lord Almighty, wallahu waliyul muttaqin, there are times that you will be threatened that if you don't follow that particular path, if you don't follow that particular path, that you will be losing at the end. And of course you will be threatened to lose probably your position, or probably different things that you have in this life, different provisions that you might have in this life. You will be threatened. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying wallahu waliyul muttaqin. In other words, the Lord Almighty is the authority for al muttaqin, for those that seek their deep love to the Lord Almighty is so strong that they fear that the Lord Almighty will be discontent over them. So they seek the Lord Almighty and are not afraid of all the different that might be there. هذا بصائر للناس. This is basair. Now I want to look at the word basair. The word basair, um, the word basair actually comes from basara. The word basara actually means sight, but the word basair means insight. So this is a deep insight for people where, with the guidance, with the understanding about the Lord Almighty, guidance is referring to amanu wa amilu salihat, and rahma is in the sharia. Remember when we talked about the aqidah side and the sharia side? So hudan is the guidance in where it's helping you correct your vision. The rahma in where the sharia itself, the action itself, the principles themselves are actually containing mercy. So when you look at in Islam, whether it's in the guidance and understanding and knowing about the Lord Almighty, whether it's in knowing about the Lord Almighty or whether it is in the practice itself, that it's actually a rahmah, that it's actually a mercy. So when you follow the path of the Lord Almighty, it is actually containing within it the mercy to help you sustain your life, to help you bring about that happiness. لِقَوْمِ يُوقِنُونَ لِقَوْمِ يُوقِنُونَ, a moment of, for those that actually have that deep iman. I want to look at, it didn't say لِقَوْمِ يَتَّقُونَ here, but لِقَوْمِ يُوقِنُونَ, because when you look at اليقين, اليقين is a level of faith. Al-yaqeen is a level of faith. So the person that lives in a certain high level of faith, where they've got the yaqeen in the huda, they've got the yaqeen in the revelation that the Lord Almighty had sent, and they also have the yaqeen that the Lord Almighty does not order for something that is against your benefit, but the Lord Almighty orders for things that are for your sake. أم حسب الذين اجترحوا السيئات أن نجعلهم, in here, hasiba, do those that have committed the sin, and in the word ijtarahu, meaning they had delved, they had gone deep in the different sins, did they think that the Lord Almighty would actually make them equal to those that had believed and done good, whether in their death or in their life or in their death? سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ, سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ, in where, what an, it is سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ, it's a way of saying that that is a horrible justice. Like, in other words, it's that doesn't make justice. It can't be justice in where those that have committed sin, whether in during their life, they don't commit sin during their death, but this is actually talking about whether during their life, when somebody commits a bad deed, or when somebody commits a good deed, it actually brings the good with it, or if it's a bad deed, it brings the bad with it. So if you steal, the consequence of stealing is actually with it. So the second that you think, oh, I'm just stealing, and that it's not bad as long as I'm not caught, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that no, regardless of whether you were caught or not, it will bring the harm with it. And that's the same thing, even for khair, for salah, it will bring in good consequences with it. And you will not only see the consequence and the effect on yourself, but you will even see it on your children. You will even see it on generations to come, in where we could see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually talked about in Ashab al-Kahf, when he talked about وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا, because their father, and some scholars said that he was a great grandfather, because he was pious, that there was another gift for them. It was to pay for the piety of their great grandfather. And that's the same thing, it will come back to them, whether in their life or whether in their death, whether the punishment of it in their life for the bad deed, or whether the punishment in the akhirah. And for those that are doing good, they will get the reward in their life and in their akhirah as well. In other words, there's no way that Lord Almighty created a law in this world in where it is a law of justice. You can't have an imbalance, not in chemistry with the negative and the positive, not in physics, not in the heavens, not in the skies, not on earth, not in the sea. Nowhere can you actually see. Will you actually see that there's some kind of a mathematical imbalance? There's everything. It has a specific balance to it. وَخَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بِالْحَقِّ. And here it takes us again, that this whole justice part, in where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to this report, and the Lord, your Lord Almighty, and the Lord Almighty had created the heavens and the earth with truth. What does it mean with truth? It means it was created with the truth that the Lord Almighty had created the world in. It is not created for batil. It is not created for any kind of any kind of a play or any kind of a any kind or any sort of and any sort of, what is the word, I sorry, I lost the word, any sort of um nihilism, or any sort of, it does any sort of no reason to it. وَلِتُجْزَى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ, and this is again in order to come back to it again, just like it came back to it in the first line in that page. وَلِتُجْزَى, so the Lord Almighty is telling us, why did he create all this earth and all these heavens that surround us? It is actually وَلِتُجْزَى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ, it is in order to have every single soul shall be rewarded or punished for what it had committed. وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ, and your Lord Almighty, وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ, your Lord Almighty does not oppress anyone. So why is it talking about وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ? So the Lord Almighty had sent the revelation about the truth and to prove the truth of this world, and it also sent the Sharia for what they had done. Again, here's the side of telling about the truth, and then it's telling you the details of your action. And the Lord Almighty, although he already had known, because the Lord Almighty doesn't live under time, time doesn't control the Lord Almighty. The Lord Almighty is telling us that وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ, they were given a chance, because the Lord Almighty did not want to punish them based on his knowledge of what they will be committing. So he's giving them a chance. In every single trial, you cannot have a trial on anyone without an actual action taking place. So the Lord Almighty did not judge them based on his knowledge, but based on their actions, but based on what and how they behaved in this life. Um, أفرأيت من اتخذ إلهه هواه. Again, continuing with the same exact idea that it was before. Remember, it was talking about the revelation at first, and now it's talking about amal, and continuing when it talked uh, about the Sharia, about the Amal, and about the Sharia. Now it's continuing about the Sharia, but this time from a different angle, in where أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. In a moment to look at and be transparent. Do you not see those that take their whims as their lords? And أَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ. And they were misguided, living in delusion. And they were living in delusion, thinking that they're actually on knowledge, thinking that they're actually doing the right thing. But then, وَخَتَمَ عَلَى سَمْعِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Notice that it actually said قَلْبِهِ before it even said بَصَرِهِ. So here's the thing, is that ختم على سمعه to hear the revelation, and then وَجَعَلَ عَلَى بَصَرِهِ to see the revelation. Do you actually see a revelation? Remember, this is the open book, and this is the 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 revelation, the written book. Remember when we talked about the open book and the written book, when we talked about ayat in the world, in the revelation about ayat al-kitab and etc., about al-Quran, and then we talked about the open book, which is the world. And here we go. So here they were not able. So in other words, the first start of guidance actually starts by listening and knowing the revelation. And the second part is of guidance. One, you would hear the beginning, the start of understanding, you would hear the revelation, but then it is not necessarily by hearing it only, but it's actually letting your heart absorb the words, your heart see and look through the surface of the words to actually recognize it with your heart. With the heart. Why is it the heart? Why is it the heart? Because remember when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually says, فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْأَبْصَارُ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. It's not the eyes that become blind. It's not that they can't see things in front of them, but it's that the hearts are so pacified with other things that may surround them, with other pacifying things that surround them, and therefore their hearts are so pacified with other things that they're not able to focus focus on what they're hearing and the revelation that they're hearing, and they're taking it as if it's not an important thing, and then they're dismissing it and looking elsewhere. And then وَجَعَلَ عَلَى بَصَرِهِ غِشَاوَةً, and they would have on their sights a ghishawa, a barrier, some kind of a covering. And then فَمَن يَهْدِيهِ مِن بَعْدِ اللَّهِ, then if they couldn't see, they didn't have the insight, and they didn't have the focus, and they couldn't even see, they couldn't hear the written book, the revelation, and they couldn't see the open book, because they were pacified, looking at the world around them as if it was just for playing, for combining money, and for looking at the different pleasures around them. فَمَن يَهْدِيهِ مِن بَعْدِ اللَّهِ, then how on earth, فَمَن يَهْدِيهِ, then how on earth are they ever going to be finding any type of guidance if they couldn't find it with the Lord Almighty? أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ, do they not remember? Remember, why is it talking about remembrance? Well, remember with تذكرون, the word تذكر actually means to remember. Remember what? Was there an information? Well, remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually says, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى شَهِدْنَا. But what happened? أن تقولوا إنا كنا عن هذا غافلين. When the Lord Almighty actually says, then when your Lord Almighty took from the backs of the children of Adam and made them witnesses upon themselves, am I not your Lord? And they would say, verily. But what happened? But on They would just say, well, we were pacified away from it. Here it is. This is why the word tadakkarun comes forward. The word tadakkarun. So does that mean we don't recall that? You and I and everyone else says, I don't remember that there was anything of that sort. Of course you don't remember, because memory, if you're going to narrow it down to your mind memory, to your brain memory, that's too much of a narrow one. And that's why when you look at what we know right now, of what we know about our bodies, does your body actually have some type of a memory where it remembers your DNA and your ancestry and all those sophisticated numbers that we know about DNA and what it carries, to know about your father and your mother and all the different details and very intricate details of your eye color and hair color and the type of hair and type of diseases that you will carry in your genes, etc. That's a different type of a memory. Well, in Islam, there's another third type of memory, and that third type is called fitra. That is called fitra. The other type of, when we're talking about the last type of memory, and that is al fitra, in where certain things to make a person question, who created me? Why am I here? What am I doing? And to bring the person to recognize that there is a purpose behind this life. So أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ is actually taking man to remember in their fitra. And the other, so why don't people remember that in their fitra? Because they're pacified away from it with different things. أفلا تذكرون is also taking us in where تذكر, in where you're taking a moment to recognize. Recognize with what? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the revelation for one to hear and one to see. And those are pretty much the strongest senses that we have in order to help us recognize the world around us and learn and help our mind understand the world around us through our eyes and our ears are the first senses of information that we use in order to recognize the world through. Then we use our hands, then we use our tongues, and etc. to pass on information or to get more detailed information about things. وقالوا ما هي إلا حياتنا الدنيا. Then they claimed that this life is just نموت ونحيا. We namutu, this life, we die and we live. And the only things that destroy us, إلا الدهر, is just time, or what in physics is called the laws of thermodynamics. It's just time, and it's just the wearing of things and things losing energy is what makes us die. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا لَهُمْ بِذَلِكَ مِنْ عِلْمٍ. And they have no knowledge of that. Why? Because their knowledge is so narrow that they don't have enough data to actually know the purpose of life. In hum illa yadhunnun. They're just basing things based on speculation. They don't have any evidence to prove that. وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا, which is really similar, by the way, really similar to what a lot of the new atheism and the atheists would claim, that life is just matter in motion. And this is exactly what what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, is that these people claim that it's just matter in motion. So here's matter, namutu wa nahya. وَمَا يُهْلِكُنَا إِلَّا الدَّهْرِ, where, in other words, they lose their motion, lose their energy, that is, and then it's laws of thermodynamics, and that's the end of life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically saying that's their claim. But in the end, it's just a speculation. It's just a theory that they put forward that they have no evidence for. وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا, and when the verses of the Lord Almighty are recited to them, بَيِّنَات, clear, their response, the way to reject them, their argument is just, they would say, well, you know what? Bring our forefathers and bring them back to life if you're really honest about it. So the response is, well, قُلِ اللَّهُ يُحْيِيكُمْ. You want evidence? Well, the one, your Lord Almighty is the one that brought you to life and then brings you to death and then combines you on Judgment Day. Did it answer the question? Yes, it was saying that the Lord Almighty, just like you were brought to life, that is. Now look at the word yuhyikum. It didn't say brought you to life, but it actually said you. In other words, you were dead, you were not existent, and now you're brought to life. In other words, your life now is basically the evidence that the Lord Almighty is capable of bringing you back to life and capable of bringing your ancestors to life. And just like you couldn't control yourself to refuse to come to life, and just like you couldn't control to stop death, you're definitely not going to be able to control when it's time to resurrect you on Judgment Day. You lost control in all these different, both of these areas, then for sure you're not going to be able to control not coming back for resurrection. And لا ريب فيه, لا ريب فيه, there's no doubt in it. ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. But most people are unaware of it, don't know that. Why? Because they're living in speculation. Remember when we said with Surah al with Surah al-Najm, يتبعون إلا الظن وما تهوى الأنفس ولقد جاءهم من ربهم الهدى. And here, وَلِلَّهِ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Why did it jump into وَلِلَّهِ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْض? Let's look at it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, well, look at this. Just like He controls and brings you to life, controls and actually brings you to death. And then later He's going to control that. Well, you're still in doubt in that. Well, look at the key right here. Your Lord Almighty has the key to ownership over the heavens and the earth. Then for sure, if He has the control and the ownership for the heavens and the earth, then for sure He has the control to bring them back. وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةِ. And on the day when the last hour comes, then those that had rejected, al-mubtilun, those that had argued, those had tried to refute, now they're in total loss, they're in total failure, because they actually thought that they could actually prove that the Lord Almighty can't do that. So the Lord Almighty is bringing the argument, well, if he controls the making of something, then therefore He controls the function of it. If He controls the making, then He controls the function. Then you, son of Adam, you don't control the stopping of any of what the Lord Almighty wills. وَتَرَى كُلَّ أُمَّةٍ جَاثِيَةٍ. And on that day, you will see every single nation Jathia. Jathia, in where the word Jathi is more of a person that's, you know, prostrating on ground in fear, prostrating on ground in fear. But here, Jathia, in where they're on ground and they're in complete fear. كل أمة تدعى إلى كتابها. Every single nation will actually be called, and the word tud'a means it will be called to their book, to the book that contains all their actions. اليوم تجزون ما كنتم تعملون. Today you will be rewarded. You will be rewarded or punished for what you were doing. هذا كتابنا. They will be told. This is our book. In other words, the book that contains your records. ينطق. It speaks in truth, for we have been writing and recording everything that you were doing. As for those that were doing good and that were believing and doing good in piety, then your Lord Almighty will let them enter in their mercy. When you look at enter in their mercy, as if the Lord Almighty is embracing them in mercy, embracing them in mercy would simply mean not just Jannah, but a protection from hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant it all to us. ذلك هو الفوز المبين. That is the magnificent success, or the magnificent and the clear win. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. As for those that have rejected, they will be told, أَفَلَمْ تَكُنْ آيَاتِي. Were my verses not recited at you, but فَاسْتَكْبَرْتُمْ. But you were arrogant, and وَكُنْتُمْ قَوْمًا مُجْرِمِينَ. And you were criminals. So what happened? This is the part about Aqidah. In their vision, they were arrogant and rejected the Aqidah part. But then, in their action, they were they were acting not based on the principles of the Lord Almighty. They were actually acting based on their whims to dictate what's right and what's wrong. وَإِذَا قِيلَ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. And whenever it was told that the promise of the Lord Almighty is true and that there's no doubt in the hour, you would say, that is, قُلْتُم. The Lord Almighty is here. قُلْتُم, that is speaking and directing the words at the disbelievers. They would say, you would say, ما ندري ما الساعة. We don't understand what you're talking about in terms of the hour. You're إن نظن إلا ظنا. We're just speculating. You're just putting forward a speculation. وما نحن بمستيقنين. And we're not even sure about it. And then it gets dismissed, of course, because they considered it's just a speculation. And then وبدا لهم سيئات ما عملوا. And then it becomes clear all the لا إله وبدا لهم سيئات ما عملوا, and all the different things that they had committed. بدا لهم, it becomes clear to them. Oh, لا إله إلا تفضل.